Now, this has been the narrative going on and on, but there is a really important video because we're talking about trillions of dollars being pumped into the U.S. by Qatar. Now, I know we brought this up before, but I want to play for you a short video, which is audio, obviously, for radio, and get your response to it with Usama Daktok. Now, tonight on Brandon House Live, I am going to deal with this issue of Jimmy Kimmel. I, as you know, was on Jimmy Kimmel's broadcast probably 15, 20 times, not in studio, because I have no intentions to go to California. I've been there, done that a few times, but never again. But he would pull clips and make fun of myself and Mike Lindell and others. And I got a handwritten note from Jimmy with a vest. And of course, I sent him a handkerchief with a J on it because he was making fun of mine one night. I sent it to him. And some of the back and forth was fun. He never was cruel to me. I think at times he was definitely cruel to poor Mike Lindell. But I'm going to have Mike Lindell on tonight to talk about the cancellation of Jimmy Kimmel, or I guess what is the suspension? I don't know. Is it going to be a full-time cancellation? I don't know. But here is my topic in part tonight. I think the right needs to be very careful when they talk about, as Pam Bondi came out this week and was talking about, we're going to go after you for hate crime speech when you say things we don't like about conservatives. I don't like what people are saying about conservatives and Christians and Jews, or people celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I don't like any of that. It's revolting. But we better be very careful because this is a double-edged sword. Because as soon as you say, well, that's offensive, well, guess what? The gospel is offensive. The cross is foolishness to those who are perishing. And the gospel is offensive. Why is it that you can take the cross, as has been done and funded, I've written about it in my books over the last few decades, take the cross, as was funded by the National Endowment for the Arts, put it in a bottle of urine, and that's called art. Because you're making a tolerance, you're making a commentary about the cross, about the gospel, about Jesus, who said, I'm the only way, the only truth, the only life. No one comes unto the Father except through me. That's exclusive. That is not inclusive. That's offensive. And so political correctness says we don't tolerate intolerance. Therefore, putting the cross in a bottle of urine, calling it art, funded through your tax dollars and mine, through the National Endowment for the Arts, was done. Now, if you speak truth about Islam, LGBTQ, et cetera, these things are now considered intolerant. I heard someone today who I normally agree with saying, well, the FCC, they are to be out there so that we can broadcast what is in the public interest. Wrong-o. What's in the public interest? Can someone please, in the control room, look up what are the requirements of the FCC for broadcasting and a broadcasting license, which I know our friends at VCY know very well. They've been doing this for, 60 years? But is this standard what's in the public interest? I'd like to know what the real wording is, because someone on Fox today kept saying that these licenses are given by the FCC to broadcast what is in the public interest. If that's the case, then we better pray very hard, because pretty soon it may be in the public interest to silence Christians, to not have the Christians speaking truth about Islam, not have the Christians speaking the truth about the exclusivity of Christ, not the inclusiveness, but the exclusiveness narrows the way, few who find it. So they do have to show that they're aiming for public interest. Well, we need to read a little more on that. Because how do you define that? At what point So they say it's not in the public interest to allow Usama Dakdok on the air, or Brandon House on the air, or Sharam Hadian on the air, or a pastor that just clearly teaches Romans chapter 1. Do you know that goes on in Canada? In Canada, you can't get on the terrestrial radio up there and read the scriptures of Romans 1 on homosexuality and add commentary. So conservatives sometimes are reactionary and they're political. They're not really thinkers. This is very dangerous. Or are we being played? Are we being played so that, oh, well, you guys all thought it was fine and wonderful for your side when your guy was in power. Well, now our guy's in power. Folks, we have to have a standard that doesn't change based on who has the power. It's not might makes right. There has to be a standard. What else were you guys going to say in there? What else? The FRC has never issued a coherent definition of the public interest standard. Instead, it made a case-by-case determination. Okay. Well, again, we have to be very careful, folks, because it won't take much before it's not in the public interest to have Christian radio, biblical worldview radio, examining the worldviews and the truth and the exclusive truth found in the Christian worldview versus every other worldview. That will be considered intolerant and hateful, not in the public interest. So tonight on Brain House Live, I want to talk a little bit more about this because we have to be very careful. Now, there's what the free market wants to do. If Sinclair and the other company, Nexstar, whatever the company is, if they don't want to carry Jimmy Kimmel's broadcast, that's their right. If they say, we find that offensive and we therefore think it's not going to appeal to our listeners and our market, therefore it's not going to appeal to the advertisers that underwrite our programming, this is not good business for us and we don't want this, that's their right as a private company or organization. But that's different when the head of the FCC, I think, starts leaning on broadcast outlets to say, we don't like this speech. There's a lot of speech I don't like, but I'm for free speech. That doesn't mean we're for profanity. You say, oh, well, you're so much for free speech. You don't allow such and such and such and such to be said or people to come on and say these. Wait a minute. There's a difference between free speech and broadcast standards, right? You can have broadcast standards. You can't scream fire in a crowded auditorium. There are some things you can say. You cannot make terroristic threats. There's some speech. It's not legal. Ask the guy in Sioux Falls that came against us. But I think we have to be careful when you start having government officials leaning on broadcast platforms to cancel people that say something that's offensive. And I think what Jimmy Kimmel said the other night was offensive. And if a private company wants to pull that, they can do that. I just think, folks, as much as we find it offensive, we have to say, but do we want the government going around saying, this is what we find offensive, this is what we find acceptable? Or do you say, wait a minute now, he didn't break any of the rules, he wasn't using four-letter words, he wasn't making terroristic threats? Because some have said, well, he put out misinformation during a very tough time for the country. Really? Do we really want to go down the misinformation, disinformation road? Because that's what the left was doing to us on COVID, right? Misinformation, disinformation at a time of a national emergency and pandemic. Why can the free market not make some of these decisions? And I think that's what Sinclair and Nexstar and these groups were doing. They're private companies. We just have to be very careful when we have the government starting to lean on broadcast platforms or on individuals when it comes to free speech, even speech that is offensive. Because at some point, what we do every day is offensive to someone. I'm giving you the thumbnail commentary on this. I'll go deeper tonight. But am I the only one that's watching this and saying, I'm fine when I saw the companies speak up and say, hey, Disney, we don't want to carry this. Nexstar, Sinclair. That didn't bother me. Am I the only one that started getting a little squirmish when I started hearing the FCC commissioner and people in the administration? Because if this was reversed, people would be having a fit. Free speech is not based on who's in the White House and whether it is appealing to the left or the right. You go back to the Founding Fathers' days, and I think we would be shocked at what they were saying about each other, what was being put in the newspapers. Ask Andrew Jackson, ask his poor wife, who went into deep depression about the things they were saying about their marriage, which is what Andrew Jackson thinks is what caused her heart condition and her to die while he was president-elect. So we're going to get into that tonight. We're in very perilous times, folks, in the country at many, many levels. But one of them is we are running headlong into digital currency. We are running headlong into the de-dollarization. We are running headlong into social credit scores. We are running headlong into an attack on free speech. And isn't that interesting? The thing that Charlie Kirk was known for was what? Free speech. And now we're going to use the weight of the government to shut down a broadcaster or broadcasters plural over free speech, over Charlie Kirk. Again, I'm not here defending Jimmy Kimmel or anyone else for that matter. I'm just simply saying we have to be careful. Don't fall into the trap, folks. Don't fall into the trap. Because next time it's like, well, we don't want to hear guys like Brandon House on terrestrial radio. It's not in the public interest. And people were screaming, hollering and saying, well, you didn't have a problem when it was X, Y, and Z broadcaster on the left. So we need to be very careful, not emotional. There has to be a standard. And then there has to be a place for debate, the exchange of ideas, and letting the market determine, well, you can't get any advertisers for that. You can't get any underwriters for that. You can't get any donors for that. I don't think PBS would make it if it wasn't for donors. Did we just see that? Their government money went away. Now they're collapsing. There you go.
Should I expect when I take the Bella Grace elixir? And the answer's varied. It really depends on what your health and wellness needs are. I would consider this as your foundational core product for a whole range of health and wellness issues. Let me give you a few examples. If you're a little bit older and you have some joint health issues, some problems with mobility and discomfort, the elixir is going to be your best friend. If you have some skin health issues, wrinkles, hydration, aging, all of those elements are going to be benefited from the elixir, including age spots. Now, if you're in a younger demographic, maybe visual health is where you need some assistance. Eye fatigue, dry eyes, all of those are going to be benefited by the elixir. It's a core product because it benefits so many.
Let's go now quickly to Usama Dakdak. Usama, what do you think of my opening monologue before we get into Qatar?
Well, I believe, hello, first of all, Brandon, it's good to be with you and all our wonderful audience. Can you hear me okay?
I can, loud and clear.
All right, so I believe the problem with America is the lack of knowledge, and they do not even know about the things we share about Qatar. Qatar is the home base of the Muslim Brotherhood. That's where Hamas leaders are living, and that's where the operation room for all that which goes around Israel, in and around Israel, and the interest of the world. I mean, we're here in America, and we are being under great influence of Qatar and the money coming from Qatar all over America. But if you talk to most American people, in general, people don't even know where is Qatar. They know nothing about Qatar. They do not know about the billions of dollars which Qatar are spending around the world to bring the final jihad, the final war against all non-Muslim believer. And the invasion of the world will always be sponsored by the Qatar money. And sadly, we are the one who also make Qatar rich by allowing. That's where Hamas leaders are.
Well, let's bring it back to what we were talking about today with regards to what's in the public interest, what's not in the public interest, so-called. How long before we have Qatar money get into major American broadcast corporations or into the government that decide, they've penetrated the federal government the way they've penetrated local governments now. And we just saw a Muslim in Dearborn telling a evangelical pastor or a pastor, I'll be happy when people like you move out of town. You're not welcome here. We're going to have Islam. We don't care what you think. We want you to get out. Well, when those guys go from being the mayor to being the Secretary of State or the Vice President or the President or the FCC chairman or whatever, IRS chairman, how well is this whole standard of public interest going to work out? Is our talking to Usama Dakdok on the public airways going to be considered worthy of the public interest?
You are hitting the point, Brennan, very powerfully, because 20-some years ago, we got one Muslim man by the name Keith Ellison, who was working as the congressman of the 5th District in Minnesota. Today, we have over 200 Muslim men, women in power all over this country, and their number will quadruple soon. And that's because the money of Qatar. And I believe without the money coming from the Muslim who are spending it as jihad, because we have to understand, Brandon, that according to the word of Allah in the Quran, jihad are twofold. That you can perform jihad with your money and you can perform jihad with your life. And so far in America, besides September 11 and few incidents here and there, it is all jihad with money. And the day is coming where we will see in America jihad with life. I'm talking about performing jihad with blood. And that is what's coming in America. And that will not be accomplished unless we Muslims have the money in America to move on from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3. The word of Allah is very clear. Those who perform jihad with their money and with their life. That is the order, as Allah repeated that verse in the Quran 11 times.
Right. With that, let's go to this audio, which is very, very informative on Qatar, because with all the talk of that it is the Jews, it's the Jews that run Congress, it's the Jews that run everything. Well, really? Why are we not talking about Qatar and their money? Listen to this.
Located over $100 billion in undocumented funds going from Qatar, i.e. the Muslim Brotherhood, to American universities. We found.
Did he just say 100 billion? 100 billion? 100 billion? Let's keep going.
10 billion at Cornell, 1.3 billion at Texas A&M. Brown University, we found $1 billion in one program called the Choices Program, led by a Professor Bartov, Omer Bartov, who's a scholar of genocide, who's now arguing that Israel is committing a genocide. Interestingly enough, he's running this project that got $1 billion from the Qataris.
Okay, go right there, hold right there. So who is funding the narrative that everything is the Jews' fault? The Jews are involved in genocide. The Jews are running the country. The Jews are running Congress. You have to ask yourself, who benefits from this narrative? Is it true? Can you prove to me it's true? There are only 4.8 million Jews on the planet. 14.8 million. You know how many Muslims there are, folks? 2 billion. 2 billion. And we're to believe that it's 14.8 million Jews that are running the world. By the way, how many Jews were there at the time before the Holocaust? About 15 million. They're just now getting back to the numbers from the Holocaust. But we're to believe they run the world. Usama?
And Brandon, here is the fact. The Jewish people are doing good all over the world. I mean, think about it. You and I right now communicate from a distance because we're using the internet and we use the technology, which is the invention of the Jewish people. What Muslims have brought to this world except nothing. They brought chaos to this world. So yes, Qatar are spending these billions of dollars in America and has been doing that for years. We just start talking about it now. But believe it or not, a few years ago, you and I did a show about John Esposito, who received $20 million. And when we said $20 million, it was a big number then, but now it's nothing. And that is to teach Islam in schools, in Catholic schools here in America. But now we're talking about billions, not millions. And the students, the Jewish students, who are the one who brought goodness to us in everywhere they go, they are the one who are suffering because of that money. They are the one who are harassed because of the influence and the infiltration of the Muslim and their money in our colleges and our universities all over America. So it's like turning things around. The good students who should be honored are being persecuted and being harassed, and the evil students, the Muslim ones, are being honored. And not only they're honored, but they are actually brainwashing our students to speak on their behalf all over America, as if they are the one who are on the right track. And the liberal media, who receive also the billions of dollars, are speaking for the liberals, for the Muslims, not for the Jews, not for the conservative.
All right.
And if you speak the truth, you need to be taken out.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's continue.
And they're creating curriculum for over 8,000 schools across the country, erasing.
Okay, do you guys hear that? Qatar is creating curriculum for over 8,000 schools in the country.
And they're creating curriculum for over 8,000 schools across the country, erasing minorities from the Middle East, erasing Jewish presence from the Middle East, erasing Christian presence from the Middle East, and inculcating children across the United States in this anti-Semitic, anti-Christian, anti-democratic curriculum. So here you have a regime swimming in money that is committed to the Muslim Brotherhood ideology, which seeks to replace democracy, to destroy democracy. And Islam is a spiritual oath to the Muslim Brotherhood. Yosef Qaradawi, who was the spiritual head of the Brotherhood for many years, always preached that the true believer, the true Muslim, is obligated to complete the work of Hitler. This character was welcomed by the British establishment, and he helped to create, he was the founding director of Islamic studies in my alma mater at Oxford University, welcomed into, the upper echelons of, the British establishment.
Assalamu alaikum. It is with enormous pride to pay tribute to this remarkable center.
So is it any wonder that Middle East studies at Oxford or Islamic studies at Oxford, these very important institutions, are turning out apologists for the Muslim Brotherhood, apologists for Hamas, apologists for the Iranian revolutionary regime at places like Oxford, at Yale, and other centers? We estimate that they're playing with over $1 trillion in assets to invest in Western institutions to influence Western society.
Fighting for Palestinian liberation is also fighting for your liberation. Zionism is white supremacy.
And sometimes revolutionary essential.
We actually need to crash the U.S. settler state. So we have to struggle to crash things here. And my students were very, very clear about this. We have to struggle for indigenous sovereignty right here.
That seek to dismantle the United States. I hope you seek to dismantle the United States. And if that isn't your politics, okay? I speak as if everybody has this commitment. And the thing is that you should listen to indigenous people when they're telling you that this is the goal.
And as always, I cannot wait for the West to fall.
If Palestine is liberated, this means this is a nail to dismantle the United States of America.
It is our job to destroy imperialism, destroy the United States, and destroy capitalism.
Spoken a lot about dismantling the American empire, dismantling this imperium. Are we ever going to see the end of this empire? Like, would we see the end of this empire in our lifetime? Like, how realistic is it to dismantle this imperium?
All empires fall. Fall of the empire is inevitable. Inevitable.
on earth is this empire going to be overtaken? How is a country like America, which spends 13 times more than the next 10 countries combined in military spending with more nuclear warheads than some countries have tanks? How is a country like this going to be defeated? And my conclusion is it's most likely going to be from within.
I've been teaching propaganda for the last 5 years at the University of Miami.
We're in the business of propaganda, whether we like to admit it or not.
Because this is what we're doing out here. We're fighting a jihad in the media. It is an ideological one.
We get involved in media to make sure Islam is shown positively. The Bible is if we're living here to shift this country's political direction and spiritual direction together.
Because we decided to do da'wah at last instead of sleeping, what happened was Trump instead went to the Iranians and said to them, listen, I need a way out. I'm going to send 2 bombers. They're going to bomb, but what did Israel say? These 3 sites. Your scream, your voice, it has power. It shifted an entire U.S. foreign policy.
Wow. Usama, comment on all that, please.
Quickly, I would say this, Brennan. The 8,000 schools they're talking about, these are Muslim schools which they teach the truth about Islam. Sharia, Islamic law are being grown here in America among Muslim students. That's not the whole case. We're talking about every public schools in America. All public schools in America, they're teaching lies. And you and I talked about that a good 10, 15 years ago. I can't even remember when we talked about our study, lies in the textbooks. We're a series of lies. And sadly, that's why our students are now becoming the teachers. And they're telling you here. They're teaching that in Miami, they're teaching that in California, they're teaching that in New York, all over this country. They're teaching what? The propaganda Islam, which they totally believe in it because we allow the Muslims to teach our children in our public schools. So, yes, they're all everywhere to brainwash our children. They did a great job. And that's why you hear these people, as you saw in that video, Americans with blue eyes, green eyes, white skin, dark skin, not only bragging about teaching that to our public schools, to our students in this country, but also they believe in it and they cannot wait for the day for America to be dismantled. Dismantling America. If you look for that word online, you see hundreds of hours of Americans. These are our children and our grandchildren. They cannot wait for the destruction of America. As a Muslim, as they said, that the only way they can do it is from within, because America is strong militarily. America is a great country. And if we can change the structure of America, the people who live in this country, to believe in the propaganda Islam, the da'wah, as the last Imam was talking, that is to invite the people of America to believe in that beautiful, loving, peaceful Islam. People like you and I, Brandon, if we tell the truth about Islam, we'll be off air. But the rest of the liberals, with the help of the Muslims and the money coming from Qatar, they will continue to teach that, wow, Islam is a loving, peaceful religion. And more Americans believe in these lies. And if you speak the truth, you're an Islamophobe, you're a hate monger.
Hold right there.
Encourage somebody to speak it out. I'm talking about.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
You're watching Worldview Tube, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio website, worldviewradio.com. Our national conference starts Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th. The optional concert banquet with a little bit of music by myself, my grand piano. We're bringing in a classical guitarist as well, who's, I think, got all kinds of awards. And we had a rehearsal yesterday. I had a rehearsal with my grand piano and piano player yesterday. And we'll do a few classic hymns that people love, particularly in these times. And then Hadia Miramondi will speak Thursday night. That's the optional foundation banquet Thursday night. conference itself gets underway Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th. And all the details are at worldviewstore.com. Now, if you cannot join us in person, then you can live stream it if you have a membership at any level for our vault, which has 35 years of my radio shows, TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, and so much documentaries. And very soon, in fact, I think I'm supposed to be trained in sometime today on the new online Bible and worldview software that we have been working on for so long. And it's going to really be amazing what you can do, the research you can do from all the years of interviews at your fingertips, transcripts. If you want to put in a question, what did Dr. John Whitcomb say about the millennial kingdom? It will go to the interview of an hour and pull out just the 2 minutes where he's talking about that automatically. It's amazing. I'm being trained in on it today, I'm told. And I look forward soon to introducing it to you, this very powerful online Bible and worldview software. Now, it will be a part of the vault, and we're not raising the price of the vault. We're just going to throw that in there as part of the membership. So again, you not only get to live stream events like our national conference, then you get all these other great things we keep adding. It's a big part of our general operating budget, folks. worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. Okay. So I'm going to go to Dr. Andy Woods here in just 1 second and play really odd audio clip for you by Kirk Cameron. Kirk Cameron. I have Dr. Woods respond. But first, let's wrap up with Usama Dakdoc. So Usama, how much a year is Qatar putting in here? Is it $1 trillion a year? They said they found $100 billion, but how much a year are they pumping in here?
Well, you're talking about one small, tiny country. It's called Qatar. What about Saudi Arabia? I mean, think about it. It's not just Qatar. How about the rest of the rich oil country in Saudi Arabia? I mean, we're emphasizing on Qatar right now because that is the influence of, or the work of Hamas and Israel, but the invasion of America to bring students from all over the Muslim world. I have met with some Saudi students whom we led to the Lord, became Christians a good 15 years ago. And I discovered from them that the Saudi sponsoring Muslim students from all over the world in the hundreds of thousands to bring to America, and the Saudi giving millions of dollars to all these colleges to allow these students to come to study in America. Brother Brandon, this is a long story. It needs more investigation than just 1 hour show. You're talking about years and years of billions, and only God knows the total of the trillions has been spent in America. They have done that, by the way, in Europe for a long time, and they don't have to spend any more money in Europe because Europe now have enough Muslims to take over Europe without a sweat, without any hard work. Now they're doing the same thing in America. And when America falls, it will be over for all the West. Literally, it will be a hopeless situation where there is no hope except for Christ's return.
TheStraightWay.org, TheStraightWay.org. As always, Usama, thank you for being with us, my friend.
Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate it, brother. God bless you.
You too. Look forward to having you back. Joining me now is Dr. Andy Woods, pastor, attorney, theologian, scholar, seminary president, and also he'll be a keynote speaker at our upcoming Ozarks. It's a hard thing to break. Upcoming National Worldview Weekend, our 22nd annual National Worldview Weekend. Dr. Andy Woods will be with us as well, live in person. Dr. Woods, welcome back to the broadcast. It looks like you have just come out of the cockpit and were flying your fighter jet. Your jacket there looks really sharp. I thought you were maybe, did you just land from flying an F-16? What's the deal?
No, this is my tough guy jacket.
You're wearing it really well.
So when I want to look like Rambo or something, I put this on.
You look like Chuck Yeager. Was that the test pilot?
Okay. Well, I'll take that. Take that too. That's a good one.
There you go.
And Rocky Balboa also.
Yeah. There you go. All right. So I sent you a video the other day of Mr. Kirk Cameron. And I don't know what his goal and objective is. I would think by now he would just be quiet because I don't think things are getting better and better. I don't see Reconstructionism working. All the Reconstructionist, Dominion theology guys, by now I think they would just shut up already, because I don't see their eschatology anywhere on the table anymore. What say you? Before we go to this shocking clip.
Well, I'm wondering when he's going to give back all the money, that he made as the actor for the Left Behind series. And he's a guy that came out here to Houston. We have a big homeschool thing for the homeschool kids every May, I think it is, June. Yeah, homeschool graduation. And they pay these speakers, buku bucks, to come out here. And so he gets in front of all these kids and just trashes the rapture. Acts like if you believe in the rapture, you're wasting your time, and we need to get out there and bring in the kingdom and all this kind of stuff.
Is that why the homeschool group brought him in, was to give an eschatology talk and tell half the audience why they were wrong?
Nope, it was to encourage the kids. And when you shoot your mouth off like that, you alienate, 75% of the kids in there. So, it was just, really what he did is he took a dark storm cloud and put it over the whole event, which is supposed to be a happy event, celebrating the accomplishments of these kids. And he decided to, trash their doctrine instead. And so I had an elder actually that went to a crisis pregnancy event that he was speaking at. And I'm happy he's doing those events, but he got up in front of everybody and took the opportunity to once again trash the rapture and dispensational thinking, just like in this clip. Now he's trashing Israel. And so I'm wondering, Kirk, if you feel that way, why don't you give back all the money you made as the actor for the Left Behind series, which was pre-tribulational. So,
wow. Well, anyway. And I don't think things are getting better and better and ushering in the kingdom. It's not in the Bible, but it's not even in the cultural vein. It's not even in the cultural stream. Is he that unaware of what's happening in the world, in the country?
Well, he must be, and he's getting the church involved in a task that God never gave the church. We're premillennialists, meaning we think Jesus is going to set up the kingdom, and we can't set up the kingdom for the king while the king's not here. And that's what he's sidetracking, the church into doing. And so he's getting us into wasting our lives and time just, in our few moments we have before the rapture, in projects that we can't accomplish and that are a waste of our energy. And so, the old days, a theologian used to say stuff like this and we would get worked up about it, but this is far more lethal because it's coming from a cultural celebrity, who was, I guess, a successful actor in a sitcom, a childhood actor. And so people, unfortunately, what do they call them? Virtue signalers will attach way more weight to this than they would just if some garden variety theologian said it. R.C. Sproul could say it. That's one thing. It's going to have some impact, but minimal. But now you've got a cultural celebrity, a virtue signaler saying it, and he's just using every opportunity to trash a literal understanding of prophecy.
Here we go. Here's the clip.
Christians support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. I know the verse that Tucker Carlson's talking about in Genesis actually doesn't say Israel. It says that those who bless you, Abraham, this was before Israel, will be blessed by God, and those who curse you, Abraham, will be cursed by God. Jesus demystifies who the children of Abraham actually are, and Paul absolutely clarifies it. For not all who are born into the nation of Israel are truly members of God's people. Well, that sounds like it contradicts what Ted Cruz just said. Being descendants of Abraham doesn't make them truly Abraham's children. It sounds like he's saying not all of Israel is really Israel just because they're Jewish. Israel didn't have a nation or a land to call their own for almost 2,000 years since the destruction of the temple in the year 70 AD. The nation of Israel was recreated through some political operatives after World War II. So in that almost 2,000-year period, what did it even mean to bless Israel or to curse Israel? There was no Israel per se. I think the scripture makes it clear that it's about whether you're blessing or cursing the true children of Abraham, those who believe the promises of the gospel.
Okay, so the true Israel are those who are Christians. That's what you call replacement theology. The true children of Israel are those who are Christians or believe the gospel. Yet that's not at all what the text is teaching. Anyone who's got a Bible, go to Genesis 12 and start at around verse 1. Now the Lord said to Abram, go forth from your country and from your relatives and from your father's house to the land which I will show you. What land was that, folks? And I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great. So you shall be a blessing, and I will bless those who bless you. I'll curse those who curse you. And in you, all the families of the earth will be blessed. And so he goes out from there. So Abram's the first of the patriarchs. Then we have your second patriarch, you have your third patriarch. And, pretty quicker, we got a guy whose name is Israel in this line of patriarchs. And we have a great nation that comes from them. Now, are all of them, as Paul talks about, Jews? There's the circumcision of the heart, and there are Jews who will be considered real Israel, particularly the Israel that you're going to see in the millennial kingdom, right? Does the real Israel in the millennium start with a bunch of unsaved Jews? No. Or does it start with a bunch of saved Jews, folks? Now, are there synagogue of Satan? Yes, twice in very first chapters of Revelation. But what are those Jews? Those are Jews that are coming against fellow Jews and Gentiles who become believers. It's like saying all pastors are hirelings because John 10 says some pastors are hirelings. No, that doesn't mean all pastors are hirelings. Some are shepherds. Some are hirelings. Some Jews are blaspheme the Holy Spirit. They attack the followers of the Lord. They're synagogue of Satan people. That's not every Jew. But let's go back to what Kirk said. He says the real Israel are those who believe the gospel. Therefore, it's Christians, the church. That's replacement theology, which I think at its roots is anti-Semitic. And of course, he's teaching his eschatology, which is already bearing itself out to be false, but he wants to keep digging deeper. Okay, I want to get a response by Dr. Woods when we come back. He's going to take the floor, and he'll have about 8 minutes with VCY to just rip this up one wall and down the other, and this is definitely in his wheelhouse. You'll find his full resources available at andywoodsministries.org, andywoodsministries.org, okay? And he will be a keynote speaker at our upcoming Worldview Weekend, Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th, okay? So with that, we'll come right back. Don't forget, Crosstalk comes up with Jim Schneider on over 100 outlets nationwide at 2 p.m. Central, 3 Eastern at vcy.org or on the station you're listening to. We'll be right back.
Introducing the Sentry Wellness System, the ultimate under-sink water treatment solution designed with you in mind. Say goodbye to harmful toxins and hello to water enriched with essential nutrients like calcium and magnesium. Enjoy the benefits of increased pH for on-demand alkalinity. All from a zero-waste system that fits seamlessly into your home. Installation is a breeze, taking just 15 minutes, so you can have clean, healthy, great-tasting water straight from your tap. Perfect for apartments, homes, rentals, and even RVs. Elevate your hydration and well-being with the Sentry Wellness System because you deserve the best in every drop.
Sentry H2O. Tap into wellness.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. I will have Charlie Kirk's pastor, Rob McCoy, will be my guest tonight on Brannon House Live. Charlie Kirk's pastor, Rob McCoy. Join me is Dr. Andy Woods. All right, Dr. Woods, the floor is yours. Respond to that clip we just heard from Kirk Cameron, please.
All right, quite a few things. First of all, as a side note, he indicated that Israel just kind of came into existence through political forces post-World War II. So he's right there denying Israel as a modern day work of God, the miracle on the Mediterranean. And that may be what's motivating his statement. Beyond that, he tries to make this case that Genesis 12 is just about the seed of Abraham and not the nation of Israel. I'm not sure if there's a reading comprehension problem here or what, because right there in verse 2, it's and you just read it, it says, I will make you a great nation. And it's true, we don't have the name Israel yet, but that's like saying the 13 colonies were not the United States of America because the title United States of America wasn't adopted later. So what he's basically doing, and he's regurgitating a theology. The first time I got exposed to this was through a man named Albertus Pieters, Pieters. It's one thing if an obscure theologian says it. It's another thing if a virtue signal like Cameron says it. So what Cameron is saying is far more dangerous. But Peters was basically trying to argue that, you know, according to Galatians 3, verse 16, we're the seed of Abraham. And so therefore we kind of take over Israel's promises, not understanding the fact that Galatians 3, verse 16 is about the fact that we are the spiritual, as the church, seed of Abraham, not the physical seed of Abraham, as Genesis 12 is talking about, but the spiritual seed of Abraham. When you drop down to Galatians 3, verse 29, you'll see that it talks about a promise, and the noun for promise there is singular. So you put this together, and we as the church are Abraham's spiritual seed because he was justified by faith alone, Genesis 15, verse 6, just like we are. And that's Paul's only point in Galatians 3. It's not a statement that somehow we take over physical Israel's seed and all of her promises. Beyond that, he abuses Romans 2, verses 28 and 29, and Romans 9, verse 6, you know, not all Israel is Israel. And he's trying to make it sound like if you're a believer, then you're sort of grafted in place of unbelieving Israel. And that's not what those verses are talking about at all. What those verses are talking about is within the nation, there are believers and unbelievers. It's very different than the universal church, where the only way you can be a part of the universal church is to be a believer, 1 Corinthians 12, verse 13. But within Israel, there are believers and unbelievers. So unlike the church, God will send the nation of Israel into the 7-year tribulation period to make a division between believing and unbelieving Israel. And by the time all is said and done, 2/3, Zechariah 13, 8 and 9 says this, as does Ezekiel 28, verses 33 through 38. By the time you get to the end of the 7-year tribulation period, the unbelievers will be broken off and sent to Hades, and the only group that will remain will be believing Israel. And it's through that remnant, 1/3, that God will fulfill his kingdom program and covenants through. And you brought this up earlier, Brandon, citing that very point. And that's all Romans 9, verse 6 and Romans 2, verses 28 and 29 are talking about. And one other quick thing, he tries to make this point that somehow, you know, Israel post AD 70, pre-1948 was a nation without a land. So, how could a nation without a land be God's nation? Well, does that mean that the nation of Israel, from the time she was named Israel in Genesis 32 and Genesis 35, until she formally entered her land in the days of Joshua, does that mean during that interim that she wasn't a nation? I mean, that's ridiculous. Israel was out in the wilderness for 40 years and did not enter the promised land until the book of Joshua, and she still retained her distinctiveness as a nation, Genesis 12, verse 2, named Israel, Genesis 32 and Genesis 35 during that whole time. So by way of extension and by way of analogy, Israel can be outside of her land from AD 70 to 1948 and still be a nation. So I don't really understand what his point is. So I guess the bottom line to the whole thing is he's abusing Scripture. He's promoting supersessionism or replacement theology. He is basically saying that the modern state of Israel is a work of man and not the miracle on the Mediterranean. And he's trying to say that somehow the church takes over Israel's promises when we are just the spiritual seed of Abraham and not the inheritors of Israel's physical promises. So that's the best I can do with his diatribe.
Well, great job. And we had him speak for us many times over a few years. But ironically, he laughed and told me he just listened to Kirk say he just listened to Ray Comfort's speech over and over until he memorized it. And I thought to myself, can't you just develop your own talk from your own study and heart? And he even joked, I even memorized the jokes. And I thought, oh, wow. And then he's a nice gentleman, but he was very, what you would expect from most people in Hollywood. He was very simple, okay? Off stage, he was a nice guy, but he really didn't know much. I mean, it was like shocking how much he didn't know about America, America's history, America's founding. It was in the green room visiting and stuff. The stuff he didn't know was just shocking. But now he wants to be an expert on theology. And I hate to say it, he was largely mentored, I think, by someone I actually introduced him to, who I also liked on American history, but didn't agree with on theology or eschatology, and that was Marshall Foster. I'm the one that introduced the two of them. And so they got together, and he went off that direction. So, you can't always keep people on the reservation, can you?
Yeah, it's not a matter of not being nice to the guy. I'm sure he's very affable, but what bugs me about it, what is kind of the burr under my saddle, so to speak, is, if an obscure theologian talks like this, nobody cares. But when the same content, comes, although less informed, but it's still the same content, comes from the mouth of a childhood star, a virtue signaler, everybody attaches weight to it.
So basically what you're telling me is Kirk Cameron's becoming a growing pain.
That's very good. I was going to use the expression "useful idiot." Okay. He's a useful idiot for the Reformed.
Stay tuned for Crosstalk. Take care. All right, welcome back, WROS and Worldview Tube. So he's become a growing pain under your saddle. Is that what I heard you say?
That's exactly right.
He really is pushing Calvinism, and I think hyper-Calvinism. And even his gospel message was becoming increasingly Calvinistic, was it not?
Well, that's my understanding. And very sadly, I mean, you can be somebody like Charles Ryrie and hold to the tenets of Calvinism and still be pre-trib, pre-mill.
Right.
But I have noticed with what I call neo-Calvinism, that it's kind of a package deal. As you buy into this really aggressive understanding of these 5 points of Calvinism, right in the door comes amillennialism, replacement theology, and some kind of perverted Augustinian eschatology.
And what is it going to take, you think, for these guys to wake up and realize they're wrong? What will it be?
Other than the rapture?
I knew you were going to say that. Yes, other than that.
Yeah. I mean, I think people need to get their theology from the Bible and quit listening to these people that, might be good on some issue, or you might have liked him on that sitcom. I mean, I watched that sitcom a couple times. I wasn't a big devotee of it, but I enjoyed it. But just because you enjoy him in an arena doesn't mean he's right everywhere he speaks. And I'm seeing this as a problem today. We've got Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Marjorie Taylor Greene, all of these people. Then you might agree with them on, universal health care or something like that, supply side economics. But all of a sudden they start opening their mouth about things they don't know anything about. And I think, sadly, most people out there just think, well, they must be good on this theological subject as well. So that's why we need broadcasts like this, to provide a counter perspective.
Yeah, someone asked me today, what would it take, Brandon, for you to deny the pre-tribulation rapture? And I said, showing me that it's not in the Bible. And the more that I study the book of Revelation, the more I see it. I mean, I can give many reasons. I will take you through. And the Greek word there is through, not out. excuse me, I will take you out, not through. And the Greek word is out. I'll take you out of that hour testing, not through it. I'll take you out of it, right? And the Greek is very specific. And there's a specific Greek word for I will take you out of that hour, not through it, correct? That's one, right?
Yeah, it's ek there in 3:10, Revelation 3:10, with that verb that's used there. And when you track that similar combination through the New Testament, it means complete removal. So Jesus used a nearly identical, as John records it, grammatical structure when he said, Father, let this cup pass from me. I mean, what he was praying for is I don't want to go through, he wasn't saying, I want to go through 75% of the crucifixion. What he's saying is keep me out of it entirely. And that's John using that combo, the same author of Revelation chapter 3, verse 10, even though those words were spoken to John by Christ. And so, yeah, that's a great argument to use for pre-tribulationalism, in my opinion.
And that's one of many. Then we have the fact that after Revelation chapter 3, you never see the church mentioned again. You have the 7 churches specifically, and they're told that if you will follow me and be mine, I'll give you white robes, I'll give you a crown, I'll give you gold, and then next thing you know, we're in chapter 4, and we're seeing these elders, and they're sitting on thrones, white robes, they got crowns of gold. And, Columbo or Matlock, as I've said several times, would go, wait a minute, boys, I think we got some clues here of who this is. And then we don't see them, the church, showing up and being represented again until around the marriage supper of the Lamb, correct?
Yeah, and not only is the word church, ecclesia, which is used 19 times prior to the harpazo in chapters 1 through 3, not only is the word not used ever of any, first of all, it's not used, but the whole concept of the church is not on the earth in that time period because it's all about God using a nation, 2 Jewish witnesses, 144,000 Jewish evangelists.
So in other words, we've moved from the church age into a new dispensation. We're out of the church age, and now instead of working through the church, he's now working through the Jewish people, the Jewish...
the Jewish nation, the thing that Kirk Cameron is denying there in Genesis 12:2. And the church is not a nation. I mean, Romans 10 verse 19 says that. We consist of a body of believers in Jesus from all nations.
And how would he deal with the millennium when you got a temple, you got sacrifices, the nations are bringing a sacrifice, kind of like you would remember the Lord's Supper. I mean, that's pretty Jewish. How would he deal with that? That's not church, that's Jewish.
Well, it is. I mean, you just have to, that's why amillennialism became so popular in the Gentile-dominated church beginning in the 4th century. People just think it's too Jewish to have an era like that.
So
but just to be
in other
clear,
words, it fed their anti-Semitism to get rid of it.
Absolutely. And just to be clear, we will be in the millennium.
Yep.
Our destiny is on the earth as the church age saints, Revelation 5 verse 10, but we're ruling and reigning the mortal population under his, under his delegated authority. And you're right.
I'll tell you one little quick story. We had a Worldview Weekend client who lived in California, lost their house, very wealthy guy. He didn't use Bitcoin. He came over here, drove to Arizona with $286,000 worth of his gold because he had no money and no house available. His bank was shut down because he couldn't have access to his bank account.
Was this during the fire? Was this during the fires?
During the fire. Didn't have his driver's license. He lost it. The state wouldn't give him a new license because he had no active mailing address. Real mess. So he came to Arizona to buy a house. He's moving everything over. He said, the only thing I got in my possession that I can get liquid with right now is my gold. I gave him a check for $286,000, and guess what? I didn't need his social, his driver's license. Sort of smiled, and I said, I know you and Brandon talked about how this worked, but boy, this is great. I feel good. I got my money. Nobody bothered me, and I'm protected, and it's private.
Just simply go to worldviewgold.com, fill out the form, worldviewgold.com.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation.